Okay, so this is going to be a video for making the wave intensity masks for squad maps. What I've done here is, I'm working in GIMP by the way, what I've done here is I've taken or created a special minimap texture in the SDK with all of the foliage and all of the statics turned off, so there's no buildings, there's no foliage anyway, there's some rocks floating around, but apart from that I've got a bare map, so it gives me a much greater, better start, better definition on all these edges to work with. So I've discovered that I have to boost the brightness and the contrast. Sorry, I need to drop the brightness and I need to boost the contrast. That's probably going to work really well, so that I can get a higher definition of all the edges. So I've done that. Now the next step, this is the source art, so you need to keep this open for the entire process. Now what we're going to do is we need to split or decompose it via the color components decompose. This will decompose it into RGB into layers so that you can work on each layer. I'm going to decompose that. It'll create a 3 grayscale layer map, texture. So we've got our red channel, green channel and blue channel, and the blue channel is actually, it's going to have to be the red channel. Yep, that'll do. This source art, again, you have to keep it open. I've just minimized it there. You need to keep it open for the entire process, otherwise when you go to recompose at the end back into a RGB texture, you will have problems. It'll shit itself because it can't find the source art, and then going in and reopening that source art will not help because you've closed it during the process. It must keep track of it during the process somehow. So anyway, that's how it works. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in. I've got a pretty good definition. I'm going to see if this is going to select up nicely or not. Let's go fuzzy select. What on earth did it just select there? There's obviously something going. I know what I'm doing. You're an idiot, David. Look at that. I need to select the red channel. That might fucking help. Yay, look at that. Much better. So, I'm going to zoom in here and have a look at my watery bits. They're looking pretty good. It's a little off on these edges. I'm not sure why, but it is a little off. I'm going to turn on all my other channels and see what they look like. No, we'll go and consult the source art at this same place. Okay, and I can see this rock here is almost out of the water. So this rock here is almost out of the water. So I know now that the light colored is in fact my shoreline, not where it's selected. So the next thing is there is obviously a fair bit of masking to do on this, but it's really not that bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my quick toggle mode. So I've selected the black. What I'm going to be doing, what I want to do is I want to add, remove from the black so that I can bring this line into where it should be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my quick toggle mask, which is Shift Q. I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to go and grab myself a paintbrush tool, and I'm just going to go like that, and then I'm going to Shift Q and see what it did. So that actually did the opposite of what I want to do. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to go out of my quick mask mode. I'm going to invert my selection. So now it's actually selected all of the land rather than anything else. So what I'm going to do now is go into my tools. This tool's probably going to be a bit big. That can be cleaned up. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'm going to invert my selection. Oops, don't do that. I'm going to invert my selection again, go into quick mask, and I'm going to, you can see where it's adding in the grey where there's black. Now this is out of bounds coastline, so it's really not that critical, but I'll do it anyway. Now I'm going to shoot down the bottom of the map because it's probably the same down here. So just quick. So what I'm doing is I'm adding to the selection here using the mask. So when I go Shift Q, you'll see I've got a nice smooth edge now. Now the next issue is going in and getting this a little bit closer to the edge. In fact, I'm going to overlap the actual waterline just a tad so that I can make sure I don't have waves getting cut off weirdly at where they think the shoreline is. So again, I'm going to go in, invert my selection, and then go in toggle quick mask. You can see these black lines. That's what I want to get rid of. So I'm going to go over it with my quick mask. Got my hardness set up. Hardness is 100, good. And I'm just going to quickly, roughly go over these. You're not going to be able to see it very well because it's a very light grey colour. But as long as you're touching over the edge a bit, you can be pretty confident that you're going to be getting at least to hitting the terrain with the water and giving yourself a reasonable shoreline. I'm going to keep doing this for a little bit till I finish it all. I'm being a little bit sort of rough with it. I know this bit's under a bridge, so I can kind of not worry too much about it. I'm going to have to go around this entire thing and just do just a little bit in from the edges on everywhere, including all of this stuff in here. And I'm going to come back when I finish that, and then we'll go from there. As I'm doing this, I'll show you. I've just removed a couple of little small lumps of muddy islandy stuff, which are not very big, a handful of meters in size. I'm not going to bother with trying to mask the water around those objects too much because it couldn't be asked, and it's really not going to make much of a difference gameplay wise. So I'm just going to do this as quickly as I can, as efficiently as I can, because to be honest, this is fucking tedious as hell, and you end up zoning out by the end of it. Now I've got to this point where I'm doing this sort of estuary, sort of marshy area, and there is some water areas. These black bits are all puddles, waters, contained water that's not actually connected to the river. That's why I didn't select out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down my tool just a little bit more, and I'm going and going to very roughly paint all of these out as well. So it's added into the mask. So and when I say rough, I mean fucking rough, because it's really not a big deal. I doubt that anyone's going to be bringing too much in the way of large vehicles through this area, but they could, so it really needs to be masked off properly, and I certainly don't want choppy, wavy junk in here because it's supposed to be dead calm, marshy sort of area. So I'm just going to roughly do it. Now I've got a point here. It's got some rocks and stuff. You can see there's a little bit in there. I'm just going to go roughly around that one. It's not going to worry it too much. Okay, I've nearly finished, I think. Can't remember what I did up here, so I'm going to just go over this again just to smooth it out a bit. There we go. Now, quick toggle back to our selection mask, a selection actual, I should say, and I'm going to zoom out just a bit. We're basically looking for any bits that stick out where they shouldn't be, and it looks like I've except for that bit up there. It doesn't matter. That's behind the map. I don't give a shit about that. So the last bit I've got to do now is in here, and again I'm going to have to go over all these little black bits. In hindsight, I should have turned the light off, so that, or set it to unlit when I was doing the actual texture. That would have been probably a good idea. I didn't think of that at the time, however. So let's go. That was silly, wasn't it? Go around the outside first. And there, I think I'm done. We'll go back out of our masking mode. Let's actually go back in again. So what we have at the end of the day is the masking, or the selection line, represents where the edge of our mask is going to be for our shoreline. So it's in about a meter. That's probably about a meter in from the actual shoreline where the minimap has rendered it. So there's going to be some places that are right hard up against the shore, and there's going to be some places that overlap. Probably doesn't really matter. So now I have my selection. At the moment I've got all the land selected, which is good enough. That's what I want. That's what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that selection active, and then what I'm going to do is use that selection, and I'm going to, I can't remember if the bucket fills selection or not. Fill hole selection. Let's see what happens. So the land, we want that to be white. So let's go down and select white. That's not white. That's white. Make sure it's white, white. And then fill. Oh, look at that. It actually worked. You notice we got some grey areas. That's fine. That's the outside of the selection. That's not a problem. We'll get to that in a sec. So we've done, this is the land. So remember what we're doing here is, I should be doing this on green. I'm going to actually do this on all of the channels, and then after that, then we're going to go back and modify them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to invert the selection, and I'm going to go to black and have all black, and again fill hole selection and plop. Now we're going to go in and have a look, because there is sometimes some grey areas that don't get covered. Okay, so now we have a black and white image, which is what we want. The black represents no changes to any of the waves, and the white represents 100% change. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off red, and I'm going to turn on the green channel, and I'm going to do exactly the same. I've got my water selected already, so I'm on black, so I'm going to fill, oops, grab the fucking bucket fill. Oh, layers like that because I'm dumb. There we go. Now, quickly zoom in. Yeah, that's done what we asked it to do, so that's good. Then I'm going to invert the selection, and then I'm going to go back to my white color. It's got to be a foreground color, remember that. And I'm going to fill it with that. I'm going to go in and check again. Yes, and we've got all white. Don't worry about those little tiny grey bits at the edges. They're not going to matter anything. Red's done, green's done. Now we're going to go to blue channel and do blue channel. So we've now got 3 channels, all the same black white thing. Invert the selection, and then let's do a Gaussian blur. Okay, so that's what I was looking for. Now you'll see we've still got a hard edge. It's white, hard white. Now this might be doing this way with the selection might be a good thing if you want choppy water out here, but you don't want it going dead calm in here. So I've done one blur, and this might be how I go with this one. This will be an experiment. I'm going to OK that. I'm going to do that blur again. Let's see how far we can push this blur. Okay, so now we're going to have slightly choppier water in here. You'll have a few little, breaky stuff instead of it being perfectly smooth at the shoreline. Let's try it again. Full blur. That's getting somewhere now. So we're going to get, looks like about here, you can see it's starting to graduate here. Big rolling surf or big waves or whatever you have here, and it's going to taper off until probably, it looks like it's tapering off to at least 50%, maybe 60% reduction in the intensity of the waves. So you still have some waves splashing about here. So that might be a good thing. Then I would go in here for the rivers, and from about here I would use an airbrush tool and start to make it a bit heavier just in the mouth of this river here, and then I would go over this with solid white all the way back here so that it's dead calm, because we want our river to be nice and dead calm. I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to undo and undo. Let's go to undo history and go back to this. Thank you. Alright, now I'm going to drop the selection, and I'm going to do the Gaussian blur now without the selection, because what it'll do is it'll blur this line. Let's see how that comes out. Alright, now what I do is go to my layers, my red layer and my green layer. So you can see from this that the intensity is coming out, but it's also going in slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to the other one for this particular map. I'm going to cancel that. Where's my history again? Go back to invert selection. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try this and see how it goes, because this will be interesting compared to, I've done one island map already where I didn't use the selection to bias the blur. So I'm going to blur that once, twice, and 3 times. It's going to give me a nice graduation of waves to relatively calm. I might actually just see what happens when we do a 4th one. Hang on, what did that do? Yeah, that's okay. I don't mind that. I might even try it again. Yes, probably a little bit too much. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is, now I'm going to select none, and okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm gonna make this a little bit wider in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in, and you can see now that it's not actually white. It's kind of off. So there would be a little bit wavy in here, which is, we don't really want too much in the way of waves on the river, but we don't mind it up here, particularly up along this longer straight. I might leave that as it is. So I'm going to go to my paint tools, and I'm going to get myself an airbrush. I'm going to remove a fair whack of the hardness. What does that do? Aha, so that's pretty good. So I'm going to go up here a little bit, and then I'm going to come back not quite as far, and then I'm going to come back not quite as far, and not quite as far, until I get to the point where up here and all on this island here, and these little sticky out bits, sticky in bits, I want all of this to be flat, calm water, because, well, no waves. It'll still be ripply, but we don't want the waves. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just do it to a back up to about here. I'm going to leave that I'm going to do this a little bit more on those. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to graduate it back a bit. I'm going to bring my size down again, and I'm going to scrub out these. Scrub this a little bit better because it's not going to be that wavy right up against that shoreline. And I'm going to shoot down the bottom of the map to the other estuary, and I'm going to pump my size up again. Oops, that's too much. And I'm going to do the same thing. There, that looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is just going to set my hardness up to 100%, and I'm going to go back to a paintbrush. Tools even, hello, paintbrush. And I'm going to go, it was about here, and just scrub all of this to white. Okay. Pretty confident I've got all that now. So, what we're going to have is I might even give this a small Gaussian blur. Now, ooh. That really blew out the estuary. That's fine. You know what I'm going to do? Fuck the estuary. Oh, it's not too bad. That's not too bad. I'm still going to get some wave effect in there, but I'm going to end up with very smooth waves up against the coast. So the waves are going to be strong, they're going to taper down, and then they're going to drop right off at the coast. Okay, that. So I now have my red channel, which is my intensity fall off channel. I have my green channel, which is the shoreline clipping, and my blue channel, which is the transparency, which I don't care about, so I'm going to leave the transparency as whatever it is, and I'm not going to modify it. Turn all these on. So now what we've got to do is we've got to recombine this multi-layer RGB multi-layer thing back into a multi-channel thing. So I'm confident that I've done everything I need to do now. So what I'm going to do, and it may not be right, I can always come back and do it, fuck around with it again. If you really think you want to fuck around with it too much, find a way. I don't know how to do it. Someone can probably post a comment. Find some way of saving a selection as a brush or a file or something per image, so that you can at a later date bring in the same artwork, decompose it, and then just drop the selection on, or import the selection, or place the selection, or whatever however it will work, so that you don't have to do the whole selection thing again. This one, I'm just going to be happy with how it turns out. If it's really bad, then I'll come back and make the effort. Anywho, back to color, components, and recompose. It's doing some thinking times. Now what we should have is our RGB. I know it's white. Hold on. That's because all the channels are turned on. We have our red channel for our intensity fall off. We have our green channel for our clipping, and we have our blue channel for our transparency. What we don't have at the moment is an alpha. Apparently you need an alpha, so right click, and where is it gone? Add alpha channel. As far as I know, you don't have to do anything with it. I don't even know what it's for, but we've got our alpha channel in there. Again, I don't know what it's even for. So that is pretty much it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to export this as a... Where did I put the damn things again? I haven't got the editor open. Bugger. Come on. Wave masks. Okay. So I've already done a wave mask for... Come on. For my dormant volcano island one. It was a fairly basic one. It was fairly easy to mask out, but I did have to mask out quite a bit of foliage on the edges. That's why I've decided this one to turn all that shit off. The next time I do one, I'm going to turn off the lighting as well, or I'd set it to unlit when I do the minimap shot. So I'm going to dump it in here, and I'm going to call it BRB for Black Rock Beach, because that's what it is. I'm going to save it as a PNG, export, let it do its thing, and then I'm going to export it again because I can never remember what type it is, damn it. So I just export both, fuck it, drive space is cheap, export, okay doke. Now I'm going to start up the editor and I'll be back in a sec. Alright, the editor's up and running. I'm going to go into my Black Rock Beach level because that was the map that it was for, and I'm going to remind myself where I put stuff in here because, to be honest, I can't remember. This is my testing map, which no one's ever going to probably see. Aha! So I'm dropping my wave mask into my weather layer, or WL layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here and I'm going to go import. Oh, before I go, it is, if you look at the bottom there, source file, it's a .png. So I'm going to go and I'm going to import the PNG version of what I just did. And wave masks and BRB PNG file. Open that. Okie doke. Open it up straight away, and the first thing you need to do is you need to go and what was it again? Wait a minute. I gotta remember. I can't remember. Okay, so my Iceland one, which I know works. Okay, turn off sRGB. That's right. Okay, it's got to be a mask set to masks. So go in here, set this to masks, no sRGB. That should turn this off automatically. If it doesn't, you need to untick that. Save. Okie doke. I'm going to quickly mess with the ocean a bit because at this point I've got a standard CalmOcean. As you can see, well, it's hard to visualize because in the this viewport versus playing in editor and then versus apparently playing in a live server gives you slightly different results. This transparency here, while we're at it, that's kind of the reason why I'm not bothering with the whole blue thing, because the transparency can actually be changed through the material that's applied. So we have our where is it? Materials. This directional LOD and directional no tessellation, I believe they all have inside them the ability to change these colors, which will then change how this stuff looks. So I'm just going to use that as a way of changing the transparency of the water. But anyway, aside from that, so as you can see, this is my little estuary thing. You can see there's a lot of little watery bits in and here and there and there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to see if this works. It doesn't always update properly. See what happens. I'm going to pop this up to about 7. I'm going to see that didn't really make jack shit difference. I'm going to pop this back to 400, and the slope, I'm going to leave the slope. The slope's kind of tricky. Yeah, see, it's not updating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it at this point at let's say 10. That'll be probably pretty chunky waves, but we'll see what happens. I might just see what happens with that too. You can always default it again if it doesn't work. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a way of half these buttons went. There used to be a button to update the waves, and it seems to have disappeared. I don't know where the hell it's gone. Okay, so if we go into the tools folder, go up to content, the squad vanilla content, go down to the tools folder and go to the editor automation folder. That's the one. We're looking for this water intensity tool folder. Go into that. This is the thing that makes your water intensity mask cached and stuff. So double click it to open the actual widget itself, and you will find the destructions. So I found it handy to have this squished up a bit so that it was kind of out of the way, so I can still read the destructions but also see some of the screen as well. So let's get a little bit more. Okay, so follow the procedure. It makes a difference. You have to do it this way. Okay, so it says select a data asset and intensity texture we want to cache. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually run the widget now. Go up to run, right click, run editor utility widget, and it'll pop up the actual utility. So what it needs is, it needs a few things. It needs a texture asset, which is the thing we just made and we just imported, and it needs a data asset. The data asset, where is it? The data asset has to be in the layers root folder. Now, I found from looking through the editor at the other map folders that it was in fact the maps root folder. Or yeah, okay, this is what I consider the layers. This is the map root folder. So what we need to do is we need to create a data asset in here for that. So going to miscellaneous, going to data asset, and we want to create a, I can't remember if it's called wave, ODK water intensity data. Click on that, select that, and make it. Now I'm going to call it, what am I going to call it, because I want to try and keep my naming conventions the same. Water masking data, I'm just going to call it the same as that. Rename that to BRB underscore water masking data. Enter. Now when you open that up, you'll find that there's these inputs in here which are related to this. So you can leave that open, but leave it in the background because you really want to watch this. Now read through this before you do anything. Okay, so you've got to select the ocean in the scene. I found that was really important. So I've got the ocean selected in the scene. As you can see, it's in the background. It's actually lit up. Make sure that it's selected and it stays selected for the process. I can move this stuff back over there now. Now, what we're going to do is, not much fucking room here. Anywho, we need to select the texture asset. So select the texture asset. That's this, the mask you just made. Ping that in. Okay. Because the ocean is selected, this will update automatically with a negative version, color-wise, negative version of what you drop in. That is here, number 3 of preview showing no texture, cat press refresh preview. If you can see the source texture with inverted colors, move on to the next step. So if it does this, you're safe to move on to the next step. If you don't have the ocean selected in the scene, this won't work. So make sure your ocean's selected first, then do these things. It doesn't matter if one or two's, it doesn't matter that number 2's done before number 1 at this stage. It doesn't matter. Alright, data asset. That's the thing I just made here. Get my water masking data asset. Plug that in. Update the ocean. This will assign data asset and texture to the ocean as well as the draw component automatically. So update the ocean. It's now done its thing. If we go into here, we'll see we've got our texture plugged into here now. Okay, we're not finished there. Select the subdivide options for caching. Now I know from checking out the other ones that 32 seems to be the norm. Okay, so do that, select subdivide options for the caching, and then cache water intensity data. So press the cache water intensity data majigger. When we go back into here, we've now got our subdivision type, and we've got our masking position size, and we've got our texture size all input. These chunks, I have no idea why there's 1024 of them and they're all empty. It's something to do with visualize this thing here, where it converts the cache data chunks into a render target. I still don't know how it works, but so I'm not going to even try to bend my brain around that. Save. Okay, and we can actually close that because we don't need it open anymore. Extra step to make sure the cache worked. You can visualize the cache. It takes about a minute, but it'll show you the data cached. Now, they kind of lying a little bit there. It doesn't take about a minute. It takes about fucking 10 or 15 minutes. And basically what it'll do is it'll re-represent this, and where your solid yellow ends and it starts to become not solid yellow, it will, all the solid yellow this side, it will basically just not produce a chunk for it, because I guess it doesn't need to. It's pointless, because here the ocean is at 100% intensity of whatever it is, and here is at 0% intensity. So we'll see how this one goes with this effect going on here. So there's going to be some water in here, but we don't know exactly how intense it's going to be. So we'll just find out. This is now done as far as I can tell. You can see here that it really hasn't made much of a difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset that. Get our water masking data has been plugged in because we told it where to look for it. I'm going to save the current, and we still have no real signs of swells. So what I'm going to do is, oh, there's a little bit out here actually. Here we go. Okay, now it's a little bit lumpy out here. This is what I was looking for before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I don't know exactly how this really works, but let's say I'm going to chunk this up a bit. Oh, look at that. I'm going to make it really ridiculous. I'm going to make it really ridiculous so you can see the change. So, whoops, out here we've got chunky waves, like that's rough as guts, alright? And the further inland we go, it starts to get a little bit less. It's now starting to fade out, drop off the intensity. It's really starting to drop off now. We get little waves here there. It's getting a lot less intense, but we've still got a bit of wobbliness here, so that's all right. In here, we've got virtually nothing, so it's gone from a little bit wobbly. Whoops! Oh, let's slow down. So we've got wobbly waves out here. You can see that. And in here we've still got a little bit of wobbly, but as we go further up the river, it's really flattened off. You still get the ripple effect. We need that, otherwise we don't want a glass smooth river. That would just look silly. So alright, so along here we've got nice gentle ripply river, and then out here we got a little bit more rougher water. And now it's just a case of messing with these numbers here to get something that represents a decent looking ocean. And that's pretty much it. I have experimented. In fact, let's do it right now while we're fucking around with it. I'm going to go in and I'm going to go to where was this again? Amphibious, that's right. Okay, let's go Ocean Squad, and let's go to the Ocean Library. There's a Wave Presets library. Okay, so I have not actually used this Ocean Calm. This is just the basic blueprint that was back in this folder here. But there is these presets. Ocean Calm is pretty much what I had before I messed with the waves, to be honest. Ocean Rollers, I have actually tried that with another map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually delete that one from here, and I'm going to set this one I'm going to have to make it the right height, which is 0, so I've got it in the right place. What I can do now, the thing is that now I've changed the actual ocean, I've got to redo that whole thing with the masking caching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go back in here and go to my water intensity tool. I'm going to run this. Save current. See, if I pause the ocean, you can see the rollers, the swells. And now, okay, so pausing and unpausing the ocean has caused it to reset, and actually you can see there's a little bit of a, we've only got linear waves to work with at this point. So, okay, again, what I've got is now is I've got this rolling waves out here, the swells. Now I'm gonna actually boost it a bit, because I'm going to boost this a little bit so that they're a little bit sharper, and as swells they look pretty good. Not going to actually know how bumpy it is until you get out there in a boat. You can see on the water there, and then it fades off. Alright, let's go and see if I broke the water or it's working as I would hope it would. I noticed up in the left now I was getting some spam from the BRDM, which is right up the other end of the map, spamming that its water bow was being deployed. So it seems my shoreline thing's working. That looks pretty good. I couldn't really complain too hard about that. So we're going to grab a boat now. Come on. Thank you. So this is pretty calm. Not bad. With a head out. Ah, there's that fake. That is so hilarious. You can see off to the left of me there the copy of the actual boat wake. You can see by the lighting now that I'm starting to get out into heavier water. This is working pretty well. So I'm going to head back in now and go up the river. A little bit of wave here, a little bit of swell. If you look at the bridge, I'm still moving up and down a little bit, but not too much. Here. Pretty much dead still. So I'm pretty happy with that. Into the editor, and I'm going to go back up to that BRDM, and I'm going to see whether or not the water is clipping under the landscape or not. Now, this BRDM is this one here. When I spawn up here, the water bow is already deployed. If I go in the water and then come out again, it undeploys and it stays undeployed. It appears to only be deployed somehow when it's actually spawning, but that's a different matter. That's neither here nor there. Okay, we don't have any water under it, so that is, and there's my shoreline and my post-processing. There you go. So there you go. That is the water thing. If you guys got any questions about it, hit me up in Discord. I will help wherever I can. This has been a complete brain fuck for so long now, and I'm glad to have got some help. I think it was from Jet. He pointed me out to the tool, which admittedly I'd never even dived into the tools folder. There's some pretty cool shit in there, so yeah, check it out. Yeah, any other questions, give me a bell on Discord, or leave a post in the YouTubes, and I'll see if I can answer them. Otherwise, if I can't answer them, I might be able to point you to someone who can. Alrighty then. Water works. Sweet. See you next time.